So, welcome everybody to the 5-day Sugar Detox Challenge. I literally, from the bottom of my heart, are so grateful that you're taking the time to do this, because the truth is if you're showing up and you're showing up on camera, thank you everyone for turning on your camera. That tells me that you are 100% making your health your priority. And that's my goal, because there is no treatment plan that is the same for any single one of my patients. Everybody has a different nutrition plan, an herbal plan, a lifestyle plan, an exercise plan. Nothing is the same. And I really want you to wrap your mind around that, because so many times practitioners, yes, I might use a researched herb that is healing a particular condition or diagnosis. But sometimes I might use a heart herb for one person and I'll use a different heart herb for a different patient, right? So I'm always looking to get to the root cause. So I'm known in the industry as the root cause doctor. And that's what I love as a naturopath. So digging deep. Why is sugar near and dear to my heart? Well, first of all, personally, I have a father who is now on a decline. And don't know how long we'll have him at this point, but cognitive decline, which started with diabetes. And so he now had wished a year ago that he had started to listen to me. However, we got him to the Amen Clinic a little bit too late. The beautiful thing of it is not for anybody to feel sad for me, but the beauty is we were able to stop it where he was at. So now his decline is oxygen, which if anybody starts to lose oxygen and they're on oxygen full time, then the tissues need oxygen. So now we're in a different congestive heart failure area, but I am 100% know from my heart that it started with diabetes. And diabetes, and I'm talking type 2, not type 1. So I apologize. Anybody here is type 1. We deal with it differently. We work with it differently. I am specifically talking about type 2 diabetes. And I briefly want to allow you to understand, before I do a deep dive into sugar addiction, I want you to wrap your mind around this, because I believe, and I know from working with patients for over 18 years and then 20 years clinically when I did my clinic rotations as a naturopath, that many people don't understand sugar, and they don't understand that it's in everything, and they don't understand like they're taking in too much and the cravings. So let's briefly just do an overview of how sugar is received in the body. So if we eat sugar, we have to digest it. Then our pancreas is there to release insulin. When the pancreas releases insulin, it's like a little transporter, and the insulin now transports it to your muscles. And if your muscles have enough sugar, if they don't have enough sugar, then they're like, thank you, I take that in. And then if your muscles have enough sugar, then now what begins, and I'm doing the really surface of it, then what begins to happen is insulin now starts creating adipose cells, which are fat cells as we know it, and it starts storing the sugar into the fat cells. And that's how we have an increase of fat in our body. Just the opposite of that, if we're constantly eating sugar and we don't have that sugar because our metabolism has now learned how to really live on sugar, and our insulin and our pancreas is constantly like releasing insulin to help with the sugar, we now may have a drop. And if you're getting a drop around 2 to 4 p.m., or like one of the individuals on here said they get cravings all the time, right? If you have a drop in blood sugar, we have to have a balanced blood sugar in order to survive. The pancreas will now release glucagon, which is a hormone to help bring the blood sugar up. Okay, so it's that constant up and down. And if it's too much, what begins to happen is the pancreas continuously is releasing insulin because we're constantly putting sugar in it. I'm doing an overdrive scenario here. We're constantly putting sugar in it, and we're constantly putting sugar in it, insulin spiking. After a while, our pancreas gets tired. And then our glucose sugar starts to rise, so that if we see fasting glucose on our labs, that tells us immediate sugar. And then another marker is hemoglobin A1C, is the other marker that we look at to diagnose you have a sugar problem. So once you start to climb over 5.8 or 5.9 in hemoglobin A1C, that tells us a 3-month span of what's going on in the body with sugar. Once that starts to climb over 5.9, 5.8, 5.9 into the 6, now we're looking at pre-diabetes. Now we know that the pancreas is constantly releasing insulin and the body is now in a pre-diabetic state. At that point, I want you to hear this. Your body is inflamed from sugar because sugar has to go somewhere. So when patients come in to my clinic and they're like, yeah, no, I'm doing really good. I just have diabetes. Like, what? You just have diabetes. Like, we have allowed diabetes to be okay. And if you remember, those of you that were on with us yesterday, we have about 35 million diabetic patients in our country right now. And we have anywhere from 7 to 8 million that are undiagnosed. So what I want you to hear, if like you're trying to get the sugar under control and you're looking at these labs with your patients, and these are, sorry, and you're looking at the labs with your practitioners, then these should be numbers that are saying, oh my gosh, my life is urgent, Dr. Donahue. Like, I get to figure this out. So that's why I want to start right there so that you know, once you get into that state, your body is starting an inflammation and your microbiome and your gut health and your muscle health, like it has to go somewhere. And sugar is an acid. And so it ends up in the colon because the colon and the urinary tract is like, that's what we get rid of when we use our body properly. We either urinate out or we have a stool, or our largest organ, well, our second largest organ, our largest organ is our muscles, but our second largest organ is the skin. So that's how we have to get out. So oftentimes when I do colon hydrotherapies on patients and they have sugar problems, I will tell you, like, this is real because I do this at the clinic all the time. They're colonic, and that's a way to remove fecal toxicity and mucus out of the body. Their treatment is almost the color, oops, the opposite side of my shirt. It's orangey yellow. And I know right away that the patient is having too much starches and sugars and that it's now in the body and we now need to rid it out. So that is like literally the overview, because the colon is meant to be a more of a basic environment. So if I've worked with patients through a colonic, maybe 3 to 6 months, what will begin to happen is if I saw the bright red like is on my shirt, what will begin to happen is it will start to turn lighter in color and more of a basic color, like maybe white or light yellow. So the body has to get rid of sugar. So does that make sense to everybody? Like, from just physiologically, that's where I really want to start. So now I want to do a deep dive into day 1 to really now set the foundation of sugar addiction. So knowing that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. It's more addictive than cocaine, because we have dopamine and serotonin receptors that are set off, that are feel-good receptors that are set off, that tell us this is really good and this is gonna make us feel really good. And the more I eat, the better I feel. But how many of you have struggled with a crash after eating sugar? Right? So you have this like crash and then you're just like, oh gosh, and like, you want to crawl up, you want to take a nap, you can't get through your day, right? Well, what happens is now physiologically, what I just talked about is you need to either raise your blood sugar with what you got because your body became used to living on sugar. Your metabolism has now found a way to live on sugar. So now you're going to get cravings. So until we turn Like Pat had mentioned, she has challenges with cravings. Until we turn our metabolism around, you're gonna have cravings. I wish I could say no and wave a magic wand and say cravings go away. But as you move through the process, I will promise you, like after a month of not having sugar, you will begin to rid your cravings. So let me use me for an example because I have been there. I would get off sugar for 3 months, 6 months, I'd feel great. And then I'd start, even though I would justify it was organic, it was dark chocolate, it was 80% chocolate, it didn't have a lot of sugar. I can have a little piece of chocolate as a treat at night because whatever my mindset, like I worked hard. I worked with patients all day. I deserve this. It's celebratory. It doesn't matter what we say. So then I'd have a little square. Then the next night I do it again and I do it again. And then the square became this big and this big and this big. And before I knew it, it's like, oh, every night I was having a half of a chocolate bar. Yes, it was organic. Yes, it was dark chocolate. Yes, it was sourced appropriately. Yes, it didn't have any toxicity in it, but the body doesn't know that. The body only knows that it's sugar. Well, of course, it knows that it has toxic chemicals in it, but we have to remember that the body only knows that it's sugar. And why do we celebrate with cakes and wine and cookies and all of that instead of like getting out in nature, going for a walk or doing a swim or being with friends or something? We all celebrate in America with all these sugary cookie sort of treats. And so it's really become, even the children. I remember when my nephew was growing up, my sister used to bring in like fruits and things for his parties, and the kids wouldn't eat it because they weren't cupcakes. So even when I work with children as patients, I'll have their parents, if they're gluten-free or sugar intolerant, I'll have them all make cupcakes together, and then they get to bring in their special cupcake that doesn't have a tremendous amount of sugar in it. So sugar addiction is real. I hear every single one of you, and I've been through it. I personally am now, like I mentioned yesterday, 18 years off of sugar and 15 years off of alcohol because I made the choice. So the most sugariest thing that I eat, if that's a word, is a date. I'm a Julie date, and I make my own almond and my own almond walnut butter, and I'll dip a date in it and I'll roll it in unsweetened coconut. So that's as sweet as I go, maybe a mango when it's fresh. So it is real and it is an addiction. And so as our brain triggers the release of dopamine, dopamine is the same neurotransmitter that's involved in addiction. So that's why it makes it so difficult to cut back on sugar when you're hooked. The other piece is that so many people use sugar again as a as a drug. I don't have any other way to say it. So, I'll have people get off of alcohol, then they'll be addicted to food, or I'll have people stop smoking and then they'll get connected to food. So really, in my world, what I'm really trying to do is balance out the dopamine and the serotonin and get you to eat higher protein, higher fat diets with less sugar. So you start to flip that, if that makes sense. And we're going to talk about that. So for example, a chicken breast or a turkey breast and a cruller from Dunkin' Donuts or whatever you want is the same calories. I want you to tell me which one is going to carry you further. It's kind of a funny question, but I think we all know that protein is going to carry you further. So again, it's the hormonal response that we're trying to balance. So we want protein is going to carry us further for a couple hours as opposed to the sugary donut that we eat. Maybe everybody's different when we metabolize it, but maybe 10 or 15 minutes and then it's going to drop off. and then you're going to want more, and you're going to get into the dopamine craving. So the whole key is to start to flip that and start to use protein and healthy fat. The more you include that in your diet and the less you push away of the starches, the better metabolically your body is going to run. Do you know that the average American consumes 77 grams of sugar a day? That's more than 3 times the recommended amount. I used to know that in teaspoons, and maybe somebody can do the conversion for me, but I don't remember what grams to teaspoons are. But 77 grams of teaspoons is a lot. 77 grams of sugar is a lot of sugar for your poor little body. And that's on average. And that's women and men more than twice the recommended amount for men, right? So research is indicating that the overconsumption of sugar takes me back to what I was talking about. It's really linked to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. And so that's where it gets really scary. And I can tell you in our country, for example, I don't love to talk 18 tablespoons. Thank you, Carol. So it's about, yeah, 18 and a half. So I don't love to talk about the pandemic because it was so traumatic to my patients. But what I want to tell you, one of the things that upset me is we never talked about nutrition through it. We never talked about let's balance our immune system. I hope I'm not triggering anybody here. I'm saying this with love. We never talked about boosting our immunity. We never talked about eating more protein and eating more vegetables and eating less sugar, so that if we had cardiovascular disease, if we got the virus like COVID, then if we had really good vitamin D and we had more balanced nutrients, like I didn't even get COVID. I mean, I didn't even require masks. Again, I'm not asking anyone to be triggered here. I'm just using the fact that in our country, we don't talk about nutrition. And we don't talk about the fact that the foods in the grocery store are killing us. And that they're processed foods and they're high sugar foods. And they're also, I don't know if you guys know this, we have I don't know how many now, hundreds of labs throughout the US that test these processed foods on taste buds to get you addicted to the food. Scary. So that's not a healthcare system that I'm concerned about. So that's why I show up and I support you guys through this, because I want you to have the information. And the fact that pesticides are being sprayed all on our foods, it's like, how do you digest them? So if you have a sugar addiction and then you have a toxicity addiction, then you're really set up for a challenge in your life, aren't you? Like, that's why I want to like really go deep into this. So I briefly talked about sugar addiction, briefly talked about the areas that it affects. Let's talk about other areas, how it really affects your body. Sugar is really just empty calories. We do need some sugar to survive, certainly. But the amount that we're eating it in has such a profound impact on our health. So it can affect our digestion, like I talked about earlier. It can disrupt the balance of your good gut bacteria, which leads back to what I was just talking about with the pandemic, that your gut is where your largest immune system is. So you can create digestive problems like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, high levels of toxicity, and now you can end up with growth with harmful bacteria and yeast like fungal infection, which will now cause inflammation deep in the cell, which is then going to impair your nutrient absorption. Is everybody with me? Like that literally happens. And so now I think it was, oh gosh, the last 7 to 10 years, have I heard of a diagnosis called SIBO? That was never heard of. So it's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which means is usually your gut microbiome, your overgrowth and the challenges that you have stays in your large intestines in your lower colon. But now what begins to happen because we're eating the wrong foods and so much starches and so much sugars is it's now coming up into the small intestines. And so now that I will tell you, my friends, is super hard to treat. I work with patients on it. We're able to treat it, but it's a long process. So the more you get your sugar in check now, the healthier that you are going to be across all levels. So that's how digestive issues come in. Then we all know about weight gain. It's high in sugar is high in calories and it's low in nutrients. So we already talked about the insulin being released to absorb the sugar, to uptake in your cells, and then the overabundance. I didn't actually use this terminology. The overabundance of sugar consumption begins to lead to insulin resistance. And your cells just are like, nope, no more. And so the higher the blood sugars are, now you're starting to start your fat storage, which we talked about. And then particularly, especially in women and men, actually, we start to see the tube around our abdomen. So that begins to happen the more sugar that we consume. Then you're also getting consistent sugar crashes. You're getting this rapid spike in blood sugar, which we talked about earlier, and then you're going to get a sharp drop. And that's when your cravings start to show up consistently in the body. So the goal is to, excuse me, I'm sorry. The goal is to keep I'm so sorry. Keep our blood sugar as balanced as we can. And I say 90 to 95 is where patients feel their best. So the statistics that have been published in the American Medical Association found that people who consumed 17 to 20% of their calories from sugar, are you ready for this? Had almost a 40% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease compared to those who had 8% or less. I want you to hear that again. Those people who are living on 20% of their daily calories from sugar have a 40% higher risk of having a cardiovascular event, i.e., possibly passing, compared to those who consume 8% or less. High sugar intake is where we're having that brain reward system that we talked about earlier with the dopamine that becomes addictive like drugs. So what do we do about it? Because I don't want any of you to be in my hands on my screen and ending up with a cardiovascular event. We start to take action. We start to read labels. Is everything making sense? Like, am I being like strong enough, powerful enough to really get you to understand on so many levels that whatever mantra you need to come up with whatever saying I need to help you come up with, sugar is not your friend. It's not your friend. And we've got to stop the brain from saying, I get a reward, Tam, when I eat the sugar. I get a reward, Carol, so I want to eat more. Pat, Margaret, Sarah, all of you that are on here right now, like, I get a reward. I want more sugar. No, you don't. Because you don't want to be the 40% that are struggling with cardiovascular diseases. Do you know how many people come into my clinic right now with heart conditions? A lot. And it can all be prevented, my friends. Unless there's a genetic. One of my favorite books for those of you that have, I personally believe in God. Everybody has a different level of spirituality. I'm not asking you to go to one way or another, but if you want a really good book, it's called Women, Food, and God. And if you can release the God piece, if you're not in the spiritual realm, what I love about this author is she would do retreats with women, and how women would just blindly come in and sit down, and they would just start grabbing all their comfort foods, and they'll want to eat continuously really fast, and how she takes them through this process of, and we're going to talk about it, sitting down, being connected to our food. When was the last time you sat down and you're like, wow, this piece of turkey got into the store and this is how it got there? Or like this strawberry, because strawberries are in season in New Hampshire where I am. Like this strawberry was just picked off of that field of that farm that's organic, and someone was nice enough to pick it and get it in a green container and put it in my CSA, my community supported agriculture, so I could now bring it home and have a valuable, healthy strawberry. Many of us are not doing that. We're just grabbing food. What do I need? What's my food plan? What do I eat? How can I get on board? And that in itself, which we're going to talk about later on, stress and cortisol is going to set you up for wanting more sugar. But I encourage you, after we get off today, like when you eat dinner tonight, to really think about, like, connect with your food, think about where it comes from, be grounded, really breathe instead of aimlessly eating and just be like, okay, I gotta hurry up and eat, I gotta hurry up and eat, and I'll be done. Like that doesn't allow you to digest, that it doesn't allow your sugars to get in the right places that it's supposed to, and or your fats and proteins. So hopefully you're game to try that. Now I want to kind of pivot. And if those of you that have notepads and like taking notes, this is where I would really start to begin to take notes and think about it. We're going to go over, I can probably pull up a label so that you see what I'm saying. But right now, and you got an email or you will tomorrow on how to read a label. What I want you to start to look for when you're on a label, I want you to start to look at the sugars. And I want you to start to look at where is the sugar in the ingredients, first of all. And then I also want you to hone in on the actual label itself. And I want you to see how many grams of sugar it has. And then I'm going to show you how to look at protein and dietary fiber in a minute. But I want you to know that unfortunately, the FDA is not just going to say sugar. It's going to say corn syrup. It's going to say high fructose corn syrup. It's going to say xylitol. Xylitol is a sugar alcohol, and so is erythritol. And xylitol was just researched to cause cardiovascular events. And so many of the personal trainers, and this isn't judging them, they just don't, they probably haven't seen it yet, are suggesting to use a sugar alcohol because it doesn't blunt your sugar response as much. But most sugar alcohols actually cause diarrhea and loose stools in patients because patients can't digest it, or people like yourself can't digest it. So the other sort of sugars that you're going to see, it could say rice syrup. It could say sugar. It may also say honey, maple syrup. Let's see, what's another one? Agave, cane sugar, which would be your natural sugar. And then anything that ends in OSE. So it could say glucose, it could say fructose, or it could say sucralose. And I want to tell you that sucralose is not good for you. Like sweet and low, stevia, all those replaceable sugars, don't use them. They're not good for you. Splenda can cause cancer. It can kill ants. Like, if you're going to eat sugar, just eat sugar. And you're not really going to ever hear me say that, but it's true. I'd rather have you eat honey, maple syrup, or cane sugar when you're cooking, or coconut sugar, than I would to have you eat a sweet and low. Or equal, or did I name them all? I'm trying to go off the top of my head, all of those replacement sugars. Stevia is okay. Just be careful of the amount. Yeah, aspartame. Thank you. Aspartame is not good either. Aspartame is in sodas and it's cancer causing. Let me go on a little soda like binge for all of you so that you get to like really know how I work with patients. You just triggered me something, Carol. So when we breathe in oxygen. When we breathe out carbon dioxide, which is toxicity, right? So that's how we get rid of toxicity out of our bodies. So it's oxygen, carbohydrates. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, and we actually look at that on metabolic panels as practitioners. What I will never understand is, why did we create sodas and sparkling drinks? Because that's carbon dioxide. Why do I want to drink something that I breathe out that's toxicity? I was like, and on top of that, Carol, we're putting aspartame in it. So are we up for like, what? Are we guinea pigs? I don't know what we are, but like, every once in a while, if I'm out and I'm super thirsty, I'm really anal about not drinking water. This is on a tangent, drinking water at restaurants, and I'll only drink filtered quality water. A lot of the water has parasites in it. It has toxicity in it. It has fluorides in it. Just not good. I have a full filter system at my house. Plus I have a reverse osmosis under my sink, and then I use B minerals for replacement. But the truth is that I might drink a sparkling water if I'm super hot, super thirsty somewhere, in a glass bottle because I can't get anything else. But for the most part, start to be aware of, that's where sugars really start to hide in our foods. Like if you go to Whole Foods or a natural health food store and you want to get an iced tea, start to look at how much sugars are in them. Like there are upwards of 36 to 40 grams of sugar in some of those drinks. And so you might as well just eat a spoonful of sugar, right? Or if we said 77 grams is your average, and then you drink 30 grams, you're already above like 8 grams, way above and beyond. So really start to read your labels. Is everybody clear on how sugar is called, different names and the ingredients? And if you're not sure and you read it and you read like, oh, this has 30 grams of sugar, and then you go to read the label and you can't find where sugar is, then start to like really research, like, where's the sugar in here? Because in order for them to put the amount of sugar in there, they have to have it in there somewhere. So I will honestly say, I would rather, if you're going to choose a sugar, I would rather have you choose like a honey or a maple syrup or like a brown rice syrup or a molasses. Like, because at least you're going to get some benefit from it. But be careful how much you eat, because sugar is sugar is sugar. And if you're addicted to it, you're still going to spike the insulin. What I suggest with my patients is we completely get you off sugar for a good 30 to 60 days. And I realize this challenge is only 5 days, but you know where to find me. But you really want to get your sugar in check. So you want to pay attention to any added sugars at all on the nutrition facts panel. And then the other thing you want to be aware of is, I talked about this yesterday, but I'll talk about it again because a lot of you couldn't be on, is that how many of you know that cholesterol is a sugar problem, not a fat problem? Right. So our friends in the pharmaceutical industry have told us that cholesterol is a fat problem and we have to eat low fat products and we should eat low fat this and low fat that. Well, low fat usually means more sugar, and so now we prescribe more statins. And the truth is when I start to get patients off of sugars and get their metabolism in a better place, their cholesterol comes down. So know that and there's a time and a place, and again, I didn't make this clear, but I should make it clear. I am not diagnosing, treating you, or telling you what your conditions are. So please check with your practitioners if you have questions. If you're my patient, ask me questions if I'm health coaching you here. But what I want to say to you is high cholesterol is a sugar problem. So if you are trying to get off sugar and you know you're addicted to sugar and you know your doctor has now told you that you have high cholesterol and high triglycerides, which is the plaquing portion of the cholesterol, know that you are getting a higher risk for cardiovascular disease and a heart attack. I don't know how to say it nicer. So if I maybe implement a little bit of scarcity in, and it might help that brain to trigger going, holy cow. So when patients come to me and they're like, my doctor wants to put me on a statin, I say, go back to your doctor, ask them if we can wait 60 days, unless they're abnormally off the charts. Let's get you on a high fat, low carbohydrate, quality carbohydrate, high protein nutrition plan. And I will tell you, with high doses of fish oil, lipoic acid, and other herbs, I can often turn their cholesterol around in 60 days. So cholesterol, my friends, it's a sugar problem. And that whole insulin pack that I talked to you about in the beginning is all driving cholesterol up. So it's insulin resistance, hence why we step into the cardiometabolic syndrome, which we talked about yesterday, which can be diabetes, obesity, a high waist to hip ratio, high hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. Those are the 5. If you have 3 out of the 5, you're now setting yourself up for cardiometabolic syndrome. So know that. So again, that's why I'm passionate about really getting sugars in check. So when I read this statistic, honestly, every time I read this statistic, it goes up and up. And this comes from the CDC. 70% of your packaged foods have added sugars. How many people are living on packaged foods? I know that if you're here, you don't want to do that anymore. But most people, like, I'll be honest, I can't go in the grocery store because I want to cry, especially if there's an infant in a cart and I look down at what is in the cart. And so to save my heart and to save my nervous system, I don't really go into grocery stores. I go to a farm. I order my meat online from Butcher Box way before the pandemic ever happened. And then I might do some fill-ins. I might run into Whole Foods, but I go like this, and I'm in and I'm out. Now that Amazon bought it, I try not to support it very much because I don't know what quality foods they're allowing in there. And then also when you are in an organic section of your grocery store, and if you're seeing something being sprayed and you think it's water, it's not water. So ask if they are spraying a chemical on your organic vegetables so that it keeps it fresh. This is our friend Bill Gates. He has created, I can't remember the name of the product. I think it's like clearly or something like that. And they're spraying it on the vegetables to keep it healthy. And in the meantime, then they're selling you organic vegetables. Appeal. Thank you. Carol, you're like in my back pocket. Appeal. I'm thinking sugar and you got me. Thank you, my friend. So it's called Appeal. So ask your grocery store if you're seeing that, are they using Appeal? Because it's toxic and it's cancerous. So would it be helpful, you guys tell me before we close, would it be helpful for me to pull up some labels online and share my screen and walk you through how to read them? Or are there any brief questions we have before we jump in and go over the handouts and the VIP? It's not too late to upgrade if you guys haven't upgraded, because they'll get another half an hour, 45 minutes with me, really answering, honing in on questions. Would that be helpful or not? Because I know how to read a label. You are going to get one in your email if you haven't got it. I think it comes out tonight for day 2, and it talks about how to read a label. And I chose a protein bar as a label, but I'm happy to pop one up now. What was the name of the book? Which book? Oh, women. Here, I'll pop it in the chat. Women, Food, and God. I don't remember. Let me tell you. It is by Janine Roth. So Gennne. Janine Roth is the author. I'll just pick a label up so that I'll walk you through one. I'm just trying to grab a label here. Give me a second. I don't even really know what I'm looking at, but it'll help you from, I know I'm visual, so. Okay, so this is a peanut butter chocolate bar off the farm. I just grabbed it. I don't even know what I'm looking at because it's all the same. So when I come to, I'm just going to go over nutrition facts with you because I have faith in you that you can actually read what is in it, because I don't know where the ingredient list is. So when I go to buy something, if I was going to buy processed foods, I'm going to come here and I'm going to say, okay, what is my total carbohydrates? What is my dietary fiber? So I subtract carbohydrates from dietary fiber. So say that's 13 grams. And then I subtract it from protein. I want that number to be 5 grams or less, and then it will not blunt your sugar response. So this particular protein bar that I just picked out that doesn't have sugar alcohol or fillers in it, supposedly, is a really good option because it's not going to spike your blood sugar. Does that make sense? So you're going to go to total carbohydrates. You're going to subtract dietary fiber because fiber slows down the response of your sugar. And then you're going to subtract protein. And so that is going to be 1 gram. So that is a good option. So let me pull up another one so that you can see the comparison. For example, of a quality oatmeal. Okay. So this is a good oatmeal. It's Bob's Red Mill oatmeal. It's the label. So let's do this again. I've got 31 grams of carbohydrates. I'm going to subtract my dietary fiber, right? So that's 29. And I'm going to subtract my protein. Is that good, or is that going to spike your blood sugar? Right. Again, I want it 5 grams or less. 8 grams or less is good. The best is 5. But the other thing that you can do, which we'll talk about, is you could add like a healthy fat with it or some flax seeds, or you could add some extra nuts or something to actually help blunt that blood sugar response. But that's how I want you to start to read the actual labels when you're eating processed foods, on top of the fact, like, so you might go up and read it and say, well, Dr. Donahue said, sugar 10 grams or less is great, and this is 1 gram, but it's still going to spike your sugar because you got a high carbohydrate intake content in it. And carbohydrates is a simple starch, and that is going to spike your sugar. Are we good? So I just wanted to show that so that you could actually, I read something on the product, but it did not realize it was being sprayed on vegetables. Yes, it is. You want to ask, Margaret, that you put that in there. You want to ask the store. I don't want to start rumors, but ask the store if they're using a peel. And then you can look up a peel for yourself. It's kind of like you never want to use Roundup on things. So I've covered a lot today from everywhere from like what happens at the physiological level with the pancreas, what happens with the sugar. We talked about the different areas and the organ systems that really are impacted by sugar, including our brain centers, our dopamine, why we become addicted. It's just as much as getting addicted to a drug. We talked about how to read labels. You know, the statistics from the CDC that really 70% of your food is processed. So I encourage you to like make your own food. Grabbing packaged food is not going to support you in the long run. And I just want to let you know, like, knowledge is power. And the more knowledge that you have, and the more that you begin to recognize on how to reduce sugar in your diet, you can start improving like tonight. And you're going to notice, I promise you, I don't make promises or claims, but I will tell you that I've worked with patients long enough that as you start to improve as you start to remove sugar, your energy levels are going to come up. Your digestion is going to get better. And just overall, you're going to feel better. So tomorrow, I'm going to go into a deep dive into strategies on reducing sugar, really boosting your immune system from gut health. I'm going to talk about how sugar creates an unhealthy gut. I want to make sure, did all of you get this handout? It should have been, did you all get this handout in your emails? You did. Okay, great. Okay, great. So like this is what we talked about today about where's sugar on the label, what types of sugar. And tomorrow this is what we're going to talk about. How really sugar can make you go like, huh? Like I can't think as well, I can't focus as well. Your gut can get inflamed, your function, your mood, all of that. So with that being said, we've closed day one. Those of you that are in the Wellness Accelerator upgrade, we're going to jump off of this Zoom link and jump onto the upgrade Zoom link. And come with questions tomorrow. When I open it up, I'm just going to have you pop in every day. Like, what are questions? Because I have content that I have prepared because I do this every day with patients. So this is natural language for me, but I want to meet you where you're at. So maybe all of you are on a different level. It's not about being a higher level or lower level or whatever, but I want to know where you're at in the learning process around starting to get sugars out. So I encourage you tonight, when you sit down to eat, think about what is my protein? What is my vegetable? What is my fat? What is my protein? What is my vegetable? And what is my fat? And I would slowly start to drive carbohydrates out of your daily nutrition. And that's how you're going to get rid of the sugar cravings. So that's my homework for today. And I know you also have homework in the email that is sent to you for tomorrow for you to think about. Bring that with any questions. Sometimes they coincide, but sometimes I go off on a tangent. I don't always follow that protocol that I created for you. But I'm here to support you. I want to see you be successful in this, and I want to see you be more vital, more energetic, more like into who you were put on this earth to be. All right. I'm sending you all so much love and blessings for a beautiful evening. I will see you all tomorrow at the same time on the same Zoom link, and you will get reminders as well. So those of you that are in the Wellness Accelerator upgrade, I will see you in that room in a minute. Give me a minute to get over there, and I'll see you all tomorrow. You're welcome. My pleasure.